They thought she was just a civilian, unarmed, unauthorized, and unimportant. General James Harrison saw her on the firing line and barked orders, certain she didn't belong. But when she turned and said, "Call sign, Widow Mark," the name hit him like a bullet. That was the ghost he buried in 2014. The same year Sergeant Williams's father died under a lie Harrison helped write. They thought she'd disappeared. What they didn't know was that Sarah Matthews kept everything. The names, the files, the truth. And now, Williams is watching. So is the world. Stick around, because when Widow rises, stars fall, and no brass pin can stop what's coming. Let us know where you're watching from, and what time you found this. We read every single comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. General James Harrison's reflection catches in the polished brass of his collar pin as he watches the woman at his firing range. Her presence here at Fort Bradley is an insult to everything he's built. 20 years of ironclad security, of keeping the right people in and the wrong people out. Yet here she stands, civilian clothes betraying her unauthorized status, while her hands move over the M4 with haunting familiarity. "Ma'am, I need to see your credentials." His voice carries across the range with practiced authority, drowning out the sporadic crack of rifle fire. The woman doesn't flinch, doesn't even turn. Instead, her next shot strikes dead center of the target, a placement so precise it makes General James Harrison's jaw clench. "Credentials?" Her voice carries a whisper of amusement that sets his teeth on edge. "You know exactly who I am, General Harrison." She ejects the magazine with fluid grace and finally turns. "Call sign, Widow Mark." The words hit General James Harrison like physical blows. His hand instinctively rises to the brass pin on his collar. His reward for ensuring certain truths stayed buried in 2014, the same year she vanished, the same year he received his promotion. "You're not authorized to be here." His fingers trace the pin's edge, drawing strength from its familiar weight. "Security will escort you out." "Will they, James?" She uses his first name like a weapon, and the crack of another shot punctuates her question. "Like they escorted me out in 2014? When you buried the truth about Operation Blacklight?" General James Harrison's world narrows to the sound of his heartbeat and the distant echo of gunfire. The range has grown quieter, heads turning, phones appearing in hands. "Widow." Returns flashes across a screen in his peripheral vision. "That file is classified." His voice drops to a growl. "You signed the papers." "I signed nothing." Her smile carries decades of patience. "But I kept everything else. Every document, every recording, every name." The brass pin feels like it's burning against his throat now. General James Harrison takes one step forward, authority radiating from every inch of his frame. "You don't belong here. Leave now, or I'll have you removed." Type, "Truth rises if you believe some secrets can't stay buried." Her voice carries across the range. And to his horror, he realizes she's live streaming. Phones are up everywhere now, recording his every move. In his mind, classified files flutter open. Operation Blacklight, the covered-up casualties, the convenient promotions that followed. The weight of that brass pin threatens to choke him. "You can't prove anything," General James Harrison snarls, but there's a tremor in his voice that wasn't there before. The woman who calls herself Widow Mark chambers another round, and the sound echoes like judgment. "Can't I?" She nods toward the growing crowd, their phones glinting like accusatory eyes. The question isn't what I can prove, General Harrison. The question is, how long can you keep lying when the truth has finally come home to roost? The range falls silent, save for the whisper of wind through brass pins and bitter memories. General James Harrison stands frozen, watching his carefully constructed world begin to crack along fault lines he thought he'd sealed forever. In the distance, a hashtag begins to trend, and the weight of 20 years of secrets presses down like a mountain on his shoulders. Have you ever felt the ground shift beneath your feet? Have you watched your fortress of power reveal itself as a house of cards? General James Harrison has, and as the woman levels that M4 at another target, he realizes some shots can echo for decades. General James Harrison stares at the polished brass pin on his desk, the morning sun catching its perfect shine. A small token of authority that had always brought him comfort. But today, its gleam feels accusatory. The secure terminal's soft hum fills his oak-paneled office at Fort Bradley, where shadows from decades of secrets seem to lengthen with each passing hour. 3 training accidents in 15, 4 equipment malfunctions in 16. General James Harrison mutters, scrolling through encrypted files that only he and a select few can access. His hands, steady through countless combat missions, tremble slightly as he opens the folder marked Williams T. Training Incident Report. The familiar wave of justification washes over him. They needed a hero's death, General James Harrison whispers to himself, remembering Staff Sergeant Williams' father. Clean, honorable, something the family could be proud of. But the truth in the classified files tells a different story. Experimental combat enhancement drugs, unauthorized field tests, fatal organ failure, carefully disguised as equipment malfunction. A knock at the door makes General James Harrison flinch. Captain Reynolds enters with the morning briefing, pausing at the sight of old files on the screen. Sir, about Widow Mark's return. That'll be all, Captain. General James Harrison cuts him off sharply, his voice carrying the weight of command that had silenced questions for years. As Reynolds leaves, Harrison's mind drifts to his mentor, General Matthews, who had taught him the art of necessary deception. The truth serves no one, Matthews had said, when it destroys faith in the system. The brass pin catches the light again as General James Harrison moves to the window. Below, Staff Sergeant Williams leads morning PT, his movements crisp and precise, unaware that his father's death certificate bears General James Harrison's carefully practiced signature. The weight of 13 falsified reports seems to press down on Harrison's shoulders. A message flashes on his secure terminal. Another file access alert. Someone is digging through the archived mission reports from Operation Shadow Shield. General James Harrison's heart rate spikes. Those files contain the first cover-up, the one that started it all. His fingers trace the brass pin as he remembers that day. The choices made in the heat of combat, the convenient explanation of equipment failure that protected the program, the careers, the entire chain of command. Have you ever felt your carefully constructed world begin to crack? General James Harrison thinks, watching Staff Sergeant Williams lead his troops. Type secrets if you've carried a burden that threatens to break you. The research papers are still there, buried deep in the classified archives. Studies on unit cohesion, psychological impact of combat losses, statistical analysis showing how heroic accidents maintain morale better than messy truths. General James Harrison had cited them in every briefing, used them to justify each carefully crafted lie. But now, as he reviews the data, the cold calculations feel hollow. A notification pops up. Someone has accessed the Peterson file, then the Martinez file, the Rodriguez file. Each name represents a family fed comfortable lies, each report a masterpiece of misdirection bearing General James Harrison's signature. The secure terminal's hum grows louder, like an approaching storm. Staff Sergeant Williams's troops finish their exercises, their voices carrying through the window. General James Harrison grips the brass pin tightly, remembering how William Sr. had earned a similar pin just days before the equipment malfunction that killed him. The young Williams has his father's bearing, his dedication, and now serves under the man who engineered the lie about his father's death. "Sir?" His aide's voice crackles through the intercom. "Widow Mark is requesting access to the archived mission files from 15 through 18. General James Harrison's reflection stares back at him from the window. Decorated uniform, brass pin gleaming, the picture of military authority. But in his eyes, he sees something new. Fear. The carefully constructed narrative that had protected careers, maintained order, and buried uncomfortable truths is beginning to unravel, one classified file at a time. The brass pin feels heavy in his hand as General James Harrison contemplates the cost of his integrity. Below, Staff Sergeant Williams leads his troops back to the barracks, still believing in the system, in the chain of command, in the noble lie that gave his father a hero's death. But Widow Mark knows the truth, and she's coming for the files that will expose it all. Share if you've watched an empire of lies begin to crumble. Flashes across the screen as General James Harrison faces the growing realization that his decades of maintaining unit integrity may have finally caught up with him. The weight of my stars felt heavier than ever as I, General James Harrison, watched the security feeds with mounting dread. The alert klaxon's wail pierced through Fort Bradley's command center, its rhythm matching my racing pulse. Sector 7's failure wasn't just a coincidence. It was her message to me, a calculated move in this dangerous game of truth and consequences. My fingers traced the brass pin on my collar, the same pin I'd polished with pride for decades. Now it burned against my skin like a brand of shame. The security monitors showed Sarah, Widow Mark Matthews, moving through the base's archives with the same lethal grace she'd shown on countless classified missions. Missions I'd helped bury. "Sir, she's accessing the Montenegro files," Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice trembling. I waved him away, my eyes fixed on the feed. Of course she'd go there first. That mission was where it all began to unravel. The whir of document shredders filled the command center like mechanical locusts, devouring our secrets. But watching her methodically piece together what we'd worked so hard to hide, I knew it was futile. Each file she touched was another nail in my coffin of lies. "Should we initiate protocol blackout, sir?" Major Reynolds asked, hovering by my shoulder. The protocol would lock down all classified servers, but it would also confirm everything Sarah suspected. I remained silent, paralyzed by the weight of a decade's worth of cover-ups. The security feed showed Sarah pausing at a terminal, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Warning messages flashed across my screens. She was uploading files to an external server. My empire of secrets was crumbling in real time. Fort Bradley files started trending within hours. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from the Joint Chiefs, each one more urgent than the last. CNN was already running headlines about possible military cover-ups. The world I'd built with such careful precision was unraveling thread by thread. The brass pin caught my reflection in the monitor. I barely recognized the man staring back. Have you ever watched your life's work transform into your greatest shame? I whispered to my distorted image. Sarah's words from our confrontation echoed in my mind. History repeats when we bury the truth. The klaxon's wail seemed to mock me now, a funeral dirge for my carefully constructed legacy. Share this video if you've ever discovered a truth that changed everything. 1. As night fell over Fort Bradley, I stood alone in my office, watching the archived mission footage Sarah had uncovered. Each classified file she exposed was another crack in the foundation of my authority. The weight of command had never felt more suffocating. General Harrison, my secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. The Secretary of Defense is holding on line 1. I stared at the blinking light on my phone, knowing that once I picked up that receiver, there would be no going back. The brass pin gleamed accusingly under the office lights, a symbol of power that had become a mark of my downfall. The bass klaxon finally fell silent, but the quiet was worse. In that silence, I could hear the truth Sarah had unleashed, spreading through the ranks like wildfire. My phone continued to buzz with notifications. #military cover-up was now trending worldwide. The truth we'd buried was rising like a tide, and I was drowning in its depths. Lieutenant General James Harrison stands frozen at the Fort Bradley Command Center, his weathered fingers trembling over the base lockdown controls. Through the security feeds, he watches Sarah Widow Matthews prep her helicopter, her movements precise, determined, exactly as they were a decade ago when they buried the truth about the Mitchell massacre. The brass pin on his collar feels heavier than ever. For 10 years, it's represented his authority, his power to maintain what he calls necessary secrets. But watching Widow implement those old rescue protocols, the ones they supposedly retired after Mitchell, makes his chest tighten with memories he's spent a decade suppressing. "Sir, she's breaching protocol," Captain Reynolds warns from behind him. "Should I mobilize security?" James Harrison's jaw clenches. The thunder of helicopter rotors drowns out everything except the pounding of his heart. On screen 6, Williams' team's last transmission plays on loop. The same desperate calls for extraction he heard 10 years ago. Different voices. Same terror. "General Harrison, we need your override code to prevent takeoff." Systems control crackles through the intercom. Their urgency mirrors that night a decade ago, when he gave the order that haunts him still. "Stand down. No rescue attempt authorized." The brass pin catches his eye in the monitor's reflection. Its shine has dulled over the years, much like the ideals he once held dear. Through the feed, he watches Widow's determined face as she runs her pre-flight checks. She's doing what he should have done back then, choosing lives over lies. A deep breath fills his lungs. "Disengage lockdown protocols. Authorization, Harrison Alpha 70. "Sir?" Reynolds' voice cracks with disbelief. James Harrison's fingers close around his brass pin. "Sometimes, Captain, maintaining order means admitting we were wrong." With steady hands, he unpins the symbol of his authority. On screen 2, Widow pauses in her preparations as he approaches the helipad, the wind from the rotors whipping his uniform. "They'll court-martial you for this," she shouts over the roar. "They'll try." He places the pin on her tactical vest. "Bring them home, Widow, like we should have done before." The base security cameras capture everything: his defiance, her nod of recognition, the helicopter lifting off into the storm. Within hours, at Truth Uncovered Trends nationwide. His phone explodes with calls from the Joint Chiefs, but James Harrison stands at the command center windows, watching the helicopter disappear into the darkness. An automated alert flashes on his screen. Classified files, Mitchell incident, access granted. His fingers hover over the keyboard. One keystroke will release 10 years of buried truths. The weight of his choice settles over him like armor, lighter than the lies he's carried for so long. Have you ever watched your world change in a single moment? He speaks softly to the camera, recording his historic defiance. Type, truth rises if you've chosen right over easy. The files upload to secure servers worldwide. James Harrison straightens his now pinless collar, facing the storm he's unleashed. For the first time in 10 years, his reflection shows the man he used to be, the leader who valued truth above power. The helicopter's signal blinks strong on the radar. Williams's team will make it home. And this time, so will the truth. General James Harrison stares at his reflection in the military tribunal's polished floor. The empty spot on his uniform, where the brass pin once sat, now a glaring void. The weight of 2 decades of service feels different today. Lighter, yet somehow more substantial. The quiet murmur of the assembled board members sends a chill down his spine. When I first encountered Operative Matthews, Sarah widow Mark Matthews, I saw her as a threat to everything I'd built. General James Harrison's voice carries across the hushed chamber. I was wrong. What I actually faced was the mirror I'd been avoiding for 10 years. The evidence spans the entire wall behind him. Classified documents, doctored mission reports, photographs of operations that officially never happened. Each piece meticulously cataloged, each lie carefully constructed under General James Harrison's watch. The projector hums softly as it displays satellite imagery of sites he'd sworn never existed. The Williams team mission wasn't an isolated incident, General James Harrison continues, his throat tightening. It was the culmination of a decade-long pattern. We didn't just hide casualties, we buried truths. We didn't protect national security. We protected our own positions of power. The double doors swing open, and Sarah Matthews leads in Williams and his team. Alive, whole, living proof of every lie General James Harrison had authorized. The clicking of cameras intensifies, capturing the moment for posterity. Harrison. Confession trends on screens worldwide within minutes. For 10 years, I convinced myself that the brass pin on my uniform, this symbol of authority, gave me the right to decide which truths deserved to see daylight. General James Harrison's voice wavers. I measured honor in medals and security clearances, but true honor stands in front of me now. He turns to face Sarah Matthews directly, seeing not an enemy, but the guardian of truth he should have been. Operative Matthews did what I failed to do. She protected not just her team, but the very principles I swore to uphold. The military board members lean forward as General James Harrison reaches into his pocket, withdrawing a micro drive. This contains everything. Every operation we buried, every report we altered, every family we lied to. I offer no excuses, only truth, however late it may be. Type, truth prevails, if you believe one person's courage can shatter decades of silence. The system I helped build, General James Harrison's voice grows stronger, was founded on the belief that some truths are too dangerous for daylight. That belief itself was the most dangerous lie of all. CNN's headline flashes on screens worldwide. General confesses, decade of military cover-ups exposed. The hashtag Harrison Confession reaches 1 million mentions within hours. A young lieutenant, watching from the gallery, unpins his own brass insignia. The soft clink as it hits the floor echoes like thunder in the silent chamber. Others follow suit, a cascade of brass hitting marble, the sound of a system crumbling under the weight of truth. My legacy won't be the stars on my shoulder or the medals in my drawer, General James Harrison concludes, watching his carefully constructed world dissolve. It will be this moment, when I finally chose truth over power, transparency over control. The day I admitted that Sarah Matthews and every whistleblower I ever silenced were right. The truth doesn't damage us. Our lies do. Share this video if you believe every truth deserves its day in the light. The last camera flash captures General James Harrison's brass pin, now sealed in an evidence bag, a relic of power surrendered to truth. In its reflection, he sees not defeat, but the first glimpse of redemption. For sometimes, the greatest victory comes not from maintaining power, but from having the courage to lay it down.